Well, greetings and salutations. Oh, this is going to be funny. I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible, even though there's a lot to cover here. Okay. Um, as we all know, uh, well, as we all know, the Earth is round. But I could just like end the hangout right there. I continually get pestered, and I think this is all sourcing from Nathan's Hangouts, his insistent need to find out how to determine R from a plane. Hello, ship. And which will never work, Nathan. I don't know why you persist on it. And oh, and by the way, if people use what you consider preconceptions, if the numbers work out, because you're actually testing those preconceptions by using preconceived numbers, if they work out, then it's right. So deal with that. Anyway, last night I clued in for a couple of seconds into Globebusters to find out if they were ever going to discuss why they cut off their comments for the past I don't know, a week or two. But what up, guys? But they didn't seem to mention it, or at least not on the part that I was watching. However, I was watching not even for like a couple of minutes, and it was just so much bullshit that they were pouring out. And since I'm muted over there because they don't like when people tell them that they're wrong with actual facts to back it up, because I don't know what it is, but they're terrified of me. I don't know why. Y'all can deal with it. But anyway, I wrote an email, since they got all those email addresses down there. Between send donations so we won't do experiments, and send donations so we won't do experiments. Yeah, I wrote an email to them. I was like, screw it, and I wrote one to Bob, John, and Jaron, of course. Now, the John address came back as being no longer in existence, so I don't know. So at least it landed on Jaron and Bob. And Bob actually wrote me back. I couldn't believe it. Imagine that. And now what I wrote to Bob was, I wrote him about 3 subjects that they covered in that couple of seconds, and I was like, oh my God, Sly, you got to have to send this message off because you're going to keep on typing. Because they were just spouting out more bullshit as I was typing. But one of the things that they had on there was apparently Neil deGrasse Tyson said that the Eratosthenes Experiment works on flat Earth. Now, that's a quote mine. And here's the funny part. Bob knows it's a quote mine, but they said it anyway. Okay. Now, to Jaron's credit said he said that it would work on flat Earth if it was only those 2 positions, but as soon as you add a 3rd position, then it doesn't work. Totally agree with you, Jaron. That's why you need to address it. However, because the difference between the Eratosthenes experiment and, let's say, which is, what is it, Alexandria and Aswan, or whatever the name of the town is, if you were to change those to Los Angeles, the northern town to be Los Angeles, the sun goes up by about another 1,000 kilometers. So no, it doesn't work for flat Earth. But you see, now I thought it was kind of funny that Bob brought it up because, and I asked him, can you link me to where it was that this was said? And he linked me to a conversation, a public conversation that was released on YouTube, where they were basically mocking flat earthers, and the subject of the Eratosthenes experiment came up. And because the subject of the Eratosthenes subject came up, Neil deGrasse Tyson did say that with a little wiggle room, it could work on a plane with those 2 locations. But that's only with those 2 locations. Okay, so Bob knows this and yet decided to quote it anyway. Bob knows that Tyson did not say Eratosthenes experiment works on flat Earth. Jaron even told him, and he didn't correct himself. So, deal with that. Oh, geez. You're living in a simulation. Yeah, simulation. So you're fake? Cool. Nice to know. Anyway, but he had linked that to me, and then of course he closed it out with uh, "You're a pathetic lying shill, and I want nothing to do with you." Hence why he wrote me back. Now take a hike, clown. Which is typical Bob Dumplings. So, oh yeah, by the way, dumplings. Yes, Bob, that's what your last name means in German. But anyway, now since Nathan has also been on the little crusade about getting the radius, and so I figured I'd mix the two of these together real quick. And I spent about the last hour, me and Microsoft Excel, and well, not too long ago, back in September, we did the Eratosthenes Experiment, and I had 23 participants, including myself. Two of them down in the southern hemisphere, and all the rest in the northern hemisphere. And we determined that the sun is not 5,000 kilometers above the face of the Earth. It's just not. Sorry. The results are quite conclusive. This is what you're seeing right here. This is the results of it across a plane. And oh my God, if anybody else says anything about the elevation of the people, you have to understand that in this particular instance, if one of these guys was on Mount Everest and another guy was in the deepest parts of the Marianas Trench, it would make 3 pixels of difference in this thing. So please just cut it out with that. That's just so annoying. But here's what I did. I used, because this was, the Eratosthenes experiment, I decided that I was going to determine the radius of the Earth, since everybody is all about the letter R. The radius measurement that is to be made on here, well, I have 23 participants. So guess what? Here's what I did. Without using any presumed measurements, okay? Now, presumed measurements will be used at the end as a comparison to what is actually being stated in today's science as to the radius of the Earth. Now, because Eratosthenes would have known that this does not conclude a plane, okay, and I'm pretty sure that Eratosthenes was a geocentric, okay, which is not the same as flat Earth. Before you guys get that all mixed up again, okay, geocentrics are spherical Earth. It just means that the universe is spinning around the Earth. It would be a fair thing to say that he was a geocentric and was working on a spherical Earth, and was just, the only thing that he was doing with this test was trying to determine its size, not trying to determine whether it was a globe or not, but trying to determine its size. Okay. Now, and by the way, somebody just said something about their participants. 23 participants and not one flat earther showed up. Go figure. But anyway, so what I did was I took the angles and the distance to the equator. Okay, because you don't need to know the size of the planet or that it's round to know the distance to the equator. One can measure that. Very easy, without any assumptions. Cool? Oh, yeah, geocentric. Yeah, sorry, man. But now, the only reason why I have latitude in any of these things is just to show you the position of where they were. They are not included anywhere in the calculations at all. This is just a truncated list of what I originally produced, and you can find it on the original video. There was actually more information involved. I just wanted to have this short little list so we knew who we were talking about, where they were, the sun elevation that they determined, and their distance to the equator. Simple enough. Now, to get radius, you need the elevations of 2 participants, the sun elevations that were determined by 2 participants. Okay. Then you need the difference between the 2 of them. Okay. Excuse me. Then you need the surface distance, as in across the surface of the Earth, the surface distance between those 2 locations. Okay. Now, you divide the angle difference by 360, or 360 divided by the angle difference, and that'll give you a unit. Then you take simply that unit, and yeah, you get the circumference of the Earth. It's not that difficult. Okay, and then you take the circumference of the Earth, divide by pi, and divide it in half, and you get radius. So that's what I did, and I took each person one at a time. They'll be the ones that are listed up top here. And I had them, and I calculated it through, times 22 other users at that same time. Now, this one is just for our buddy way up north. And this was just the first one that I did just to get all the calculations straight. It is these calculations just put into a row. That's all it is. And comparing RHKGL, is the username, comparing him to each of the other 22 participants, came out to an average radius of the Earth at 6,314 kilometers, which means that the calculations with his versus everybody, or compared on to everybody else's, as in him being like, let's say, the well, and everybody else being the other location, it was 1% off. It was off by 57 kilometers total. 57 from over 6,000. Okay, and something else you need to know here. It could be up to 10%. I think I actually worked it out a little while ago, that I can actually have it up to 20% off, and that's still less than 1 degree off. Now, everybody who was doing this test was using their own equipment, was using their own stuff, had their own setup. I had one guy who was doing a shadow off a bench, another one who was doing a shadow off of an arrow across a brick floor ground at a train station. I mean, nobody was using the exact same stuff. That's not a complaint. That's just noting that there was some minor, very minor deviations in the results that were produced. Now, you think I just did it for this one guy? No. I did it for all of them. Every last one of them. Hold on a second here. I don't want to spoil the surprise. I think I'm scrolled all the way down on the other one. Yes, I was. Ha. Okay. So, this is just a larger version. Sorry, this is where I was a second ago. Screen cap it if you'd like to. So, like I said, with KGL, he was off by him with everybody else 1%. He was within 1% of the actual current stated radius of the Earth. Cool. Next one. Now, a minus number means that the results that were brought out, the average result that was brought out, was actually larger. Sorry if that sounds backwards, just the way the calculation worked out. I didn't feel like going back and fixing it afterwards. Okay, so a positive number means that they came out smaller. A negative number means they came out larger. Okay, now this one was off by 1,200 kilometers. Can't say anything about it. It's just what it was. Okay. This one was off only by about 213 kilometers. This one was off by 49 kilometers. Okay. 461 kilometers. 652 kilometers. 619 kilometers. This is the difference of what is actually stated today as the radius of the Earth. And mind you, people were doing this with just, backyard stuff. No high precision devices. I think mine and one other one were actually somewhat precision, just because of the fact that they could be replicated easily. But yeah. Okay, off by 253 kilometers. Off by 13 kilometers. 13 kilometers. Like I said, screen cap this stuff all you want. Okay, 223 kilometers. 347 kilometers. Oh yeah, by the way, Josh was the one that had, I think it was Josh, was the one that had actually nailed the 5,000 kilometer sun. But I thought that was kind of funny at the time. Okay, this one was off by 1,600 kilometers, 155 kilometers, 1,700 kilometers, 554 kilometers. Okay, so 739 kilometers, 996 kilometers. Now, mind you, 600 kilometers is one tenth. Okay, it's only 1/10 off. This one was real close. 70 kilometers, 446 kilometers, 672 kilometers. This is Coon Rich. Coon Rich, he's right there near the equator, 228 kilometers. Well, somewhat near the equator, about 13 degrees off of it. Okay, and these are our two guys down south. Minus 264 kilometers and minus 376 kilometers. Now, that all sounds like a lot, right? Sounds like a lot. Let's do an average of all of those to find out exactly what this test revealed. Now, this test was 506 individual calculations, 270 something single comparisons. It's incredible the amount of data this is. Now, here's what it ended up coming out: 276 individual comparisons. The stated radius of the Earth is 6,371 kilometers. The average radius result of all of this data was 6,466. Okay, an average difference of 95 kilometers too big. 95. See how that works? 95 kilometers, or 1.49%. So, ladies and gentlemen, even though I've told enough flat earthers who have come to my channel to go ahead and work these numbers out, and none of them will do it. None of them wanted to do it. Okay, I even had somebody even up to like day before yesterday, I think it was yesterday. You know, I kept on telling them, just do the numbers that are on the damn screen. Okay? Everybody there, everybody who participated, and you could check these numbers yourself, off by 1.49% of the actual radius of the Earth. And I did not use, this is just how you get this information. This isn't, I didn't use the circumference of the Earth. I didn't use any prerequisite radius. I only used the radius to compare, but I did not even use, I didn't use any of that. This is just how you do this. Okay? And if I remember correctly, the original, all of the original measurements that were made when it was put up on a actual sized sphere were all within 1 degree of pointing directly in at the sun. Yeah, I'm sure I probably got a whole bunch of dislikes. Everybody's still mad about that Salton Sea thing. By the way, there was 2 P900s there. Wonder where that footage is. P900s by flat earthers, mind you. Anyway, but so that's all I got. Okay, you wanted R? There's R. And Bob, sorry, dude. If you guys are too lazy and too scared to actually perform real experimentation and stand up to their results for scrutiny to the same level of detail that you expect from everybody else, if you're too lazy to do that, if you're too scared to do that in front of your folks, I don't know what else to tell you, man. You want to call me a clown? You want to call me a shill? Sorry, buddy. Those who are afraid to actually do the work. Yes, I'm using the word afraid. I know you will come back and say you're not afraid. I'm saying you're afraid to look bad in front of your people by organizing a test of this amount of mathematical magnitude. I dare you. And then you come back to me with your 5,000 kilometer, or excuse me, I think you actually said 3,400 mile high sun. I dare you. Or what was that movie? I double dog dare you. And you know what? If you do it and it comes up with a near sun, exactly, and I don't mean, I'm not talking about Dr. Zach refraction exactly, where he just all he did was move the light source, okay, and it didn't even point at it. I'm talking about to this level of precision, to 1.49%, Bob. I dare you. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the results. You can look them all up. This data is unchanged from the data that was on the original test back in September. You can do all the numbers all by yourself. And you know what? Use Excel. It helps. Because if you think that I sat down and did each one of these calculations individually, yeah, I'd still be typing. No, all you have to do is put in the formulas, copy and paste it. Okay? As a matter of fact, if you watch real close, I'm going to run through the formulas right up here that I have in here right now. Okay, equals D5. That means it's pulling that name from the list to the left. Equals F5, which is pulling the sun elevation from the list. Equals G5, okay, which is pulling the distance in kilometers to the equator from the list. Okay, now, and then that repeats down, and I did that on each one of them, just pulling a different one from, or pulling from a different row on the list. These here are a mirror of the information that's over here, because that will come into the comparison. Then what I did was I did a greater than, less than, because I needed to be able to do a subtract function, and I needed to make sure that I wasn't going to come up with negative numbers. So it was just a subtract function of the highest distance from the equator to the lowest distance from the equator. Now, every one of these has a single red line in it or orange line in it, and that's because of the fact it's identifying which guy I'm actually working with, because there's going to be no values down here. Okay? But each line is programmed the same. Okay, so getting the difference here, that's a minus there to find out what the difference between the two locations is as far as their actual space location if they were directly north and south of each other. Okay, now getting the angle differential. Same thing I did here. I did a greater than and less than to make sure that the higher one was above the lower one, so that the subtraction did not equal a negative result. Those two together get that difference. That's the difference between the two angles that were measured with the shadow. Surface unit. Okay, surface unit. Now it says here if error, and the reason why it says if error, I don't know if you've ever worked with Excel before, but if you put if error before an actual calculation, that means that if it comes up as 0 or if it comes up as error, it will report back a number 0, which is what I wanted, so I can actually get the averages right without having to go through each one and actually excluding one particular row. But the surface unit is 360 degrees divided by the difference in the angles. Okay, and from that, Q5 times U5, which is the distance difference times the surface unit equals the circumference, and circumference divided by pi and divided by 2 equals radius. And then all I did was add them down, And then these right here are just the text stated circumference and radius of the Earth and the differences between them. That's all it is. You guys can do this all day. Sun, moon, angular size are equal. Yeah. You know what, Jimmy? I can actually put my thumb up to the sun and block out the sun. So according to you, the sun and my thumb are the same size. No, Red, not debunking it without you. Just trying to make sure it stays short. Because it is 11:40 out right now, and I got to go walk the dog. So, ladies and gents, you guys wanted R, and Bob, he said that, well, Bob has basically pointed out that they are scared to do the Eratosthenes experiment. They've ran from it, and of course they throw insults at me. You're a pathetic lying shill, and I want nothing to do with you, he said. Now take a hike, clown. Well, sorry. Just because I pointed out your quote mine, and just because I pointed out the fact that you're too scared to do this test, which yields these results, and I even offered to help you by even putting it all together for you, you ran like a little child, like flat earthers do. Okay. And oh yeah, and by the way, just to remind you one more time, just to help you out, make sure you remove John's email from the description of your Globebusters things because it is not functioning. I got an error back that says that that email address doesn't exist. And if you're having trouble finding it, it's between the send us money so we do no experimentation and the one below it, which is also send us money so we don't do experimentation. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got. Y'all have a nice night.